A couple updates around here. The F100 is going to be on the back burner for just a little while we locate some donor parts needed for it. Also, the Camaro has gone back to the body shop for a couple weeks to get some touch-up work done, and then it'll be coming back to us for air conditioning and final test drives and adjustments. But we got some cool things happening. Got a 39 Oldsmobile in here. Thing's pretty cool. The rear end was completely destroyed in it. We're going to go over the tear down on it and the damage that we found and what we're going to do to fix that issue. And we also got the Roadster back in finally, working on the transmission tunnel, the sheet metal on the floor. Let's roll that beautiful footage. All right, now that we have our temporary drive shaft in place, we can begin to form our tunnel and then move on to sheet metal in the cab. Now that we have the drive shaft here, we've already taken some 3/4 inch square tubing and tacked it in place to form the center part of the tunnel. We'll carry that on back to the wall and then move up over the transmission, and then we can start forming our sheet metal and make our body mounts. I am going to make this body removable. It's going to be pretty simple. If there's ever an issue, I can just unhook the drive shaft, a wiring harness, and a couple other bolts, and this body's off and gone, and anything I need to get to on the engine and transmission or the drivetrain or frame is super accessible. So let's get started and show you a couple things we did. As you can see, we already have some of this in place. I went ahead and just got it centered up and made sure we had enough room around our drive shaft here for clearance. This is going to be the center point where we build all of our other webbing off of here. I took this part up here as far up on the transmission with keeping the same width as I could. We'll build our bars to the firewall and form our transmission tunnel. And before we put the sheet metal back in, we'll take some large steel bars and weld them around, basically as a safety loop for the drive shaft. Something like old semi-truck U-bolts work really well, or a stronger steel that's going to hold up to it banging around. God forbid something ever happens and it comes loose, which it probably won't. This is not big horsepower right here, so we probably won't have to worry about it. I did take the dashboard out. It was only tacked in. We are definitely going to need the room when it comes to getting in here and forming our transmission tunnel. But let's go ahead and get started on this and see what we can do. So we made another pattern just like we had right here, back here on the wall, tacked it in place. Yeah, I know it looks like garbage, it's rusty, whatever. We'll fix that later. Cut these 4 pieces out, and those are going to be our stringers to connect the back wall to the trans tunnel. We're going to go ahead and get those welded in. All right, so we finished getting the transmission tunnel framed up with our 3/4 square tubing, and we went ahead and made our panels for the side, put a little design on them through the bead roller, makes them nice and stiff now. They're not going to paint can and make all those weird noises. And then we went ahead and cut out our top panel. That's pretty impressive. We got this far with it with the 19-inch throat on the Eastwood bead roller, but it'll work just fine. Slides in just like so. And there you go. You got a top. Go ahead and weld this all the way around. Grind it down, make it look pretty. We'll be good to go. We can go ahead and start working on the floors. While the Camaro's out getting some paint touch-up work done, we took in this 39 Oldsmobile from a local customer. As you can see, it's a pretty cool car. It's been chopped. Chop's not completely finished, but it's there. And it's already got a small block and a automatic transmission. And overall, it's a pretty cool car. Super low. As you can see, it's up on blocks, and it's also stuck out here because the yoke's missing off the rear end, and we can't move it. So we're going to find a yoke, and then we're going to go ahead and get this thing buttoned up, get the axle rolling, swap it out for some posi gears, and see what other kind of work we're going to do on it. We may do a little more suspension and steering work on it, possibly change out the rear springs for coilovers or bags. Now the yoke has been removed, and therefore the outer pinion bearing has fallen out of this. So we're going to go ahead and drop this rear end out, look at it, see what's damaged, possibly upgrade it to a posi or a locker setup, and go ahead and fix any suspension issues that we may have. All right, so under the 39 Oldsmobile, they've got a Chevrolet 10-bolt rear end. You can see they've got some kind of double coil set up here. You'll also notice there's some kind of wood they've set in place here as a buffer right here above the trailing arms. Once we get this out, we're going to see what's going on with this. Well, we've run into our first new snag. You can see that. That's the brake line. So I don't know when or how it got broken, but it did. We had a little bit of trouble getting the panhard bar there off. Took a little bit of prying, But the only thing we have left to do is disconnect this one brake line up here to this side from the T. And then we can go ahead and drop this out. Let's get it out and take a look at it. Now that we got the 2-link disconnected from the axle and we were able to get it out, we went ahead and unbolted our cover, set our bolts to the side, take the cover off and see what's in here. I'm feeling it's not going to look good. Yeah, no, it's not good. Right off the bat, you can see you've got a complete tooth missing there, partial there. There's a pile of teeth down there at the bottom. So this ring and pinion setup is pretty much trashed. Hopefully it didn't damage the housing. We're going to go ahead and pull the axles out. Now that we have our rear end torn apart, we're going to go ahead and get the carrier out. Now we did slide the axles in and pull our seat clips, but we're going to put our pin back in. If you leave the pin out and rotate the carrier, your spider gears will then fall in. So to make your life a little bit easier, stick the pin back in, put the bolt back through, tighten the lock bolt back up. This way your pin doesn't come out. Keep your carrier together. Now this carrier is junk, but we still don't want parts going everywhere. Let's go ahead and inspect the housing after we get the pinion out. See what kind of damage we got. It appears that we have lucked out. As expected, the pinion is also destroyed. We used a magnet and got all the chunks out of here, but there's no damage to the actual housing. The race is kind of beat up. And because we had metal particles going through the entire housing, we should go ahead and service your outer axle bearings as well. They may look fine, but they're cheap and just to be on the safe side. Also, I think it's time for brake shoes. So we're going to get a list together, see what we can get handled on this.